The Ethiopian Bible contains one of Christianity's most complete collections of ancient texts, and what it reveals about the end times might completely change how you understand biblical prophecy. While most Christians are familiar with the Book of Revelation, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church preserves manuscripts that include additional apocalyptic writings that were excluded from other biblical canons centuries ago. These texts paint a dramatically different picture of Armageddon than what most people have been taught. The Ethiopian Bible, known as the Ge'ez Bible, contains 81 books compared to the 66 books in the Protestant Bible. This massive collection includes texts like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and other apocalyptic writings that provide extraordinary detail about the final battle between. Have you ever wondered why the Ethiopian Bible contains books that were completely removed from your Bible? What if I told you that hidden within these ancient texts lies a chilling prophecy about Armageddon that mainstream Christianity has kept buried for over 1,000 years? The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has preserved the most complete biblical canon in existence, containing 81 books compared to the 66 in your Protestant Bible. And what these additional texts reveal about the end times will fundamentally change how you understand biblical prophecy forever. The story begins in the 4th century, when powerful church councils were deciding which books belonged in the Bible and which should be cast aside. While European Christianity was purging texts they deemed controversial, the Ethiopian Church was doing something remarkable. They were preserving every single manuscript they could find, believing that God's word should remain intact and unedited by human hands. This decision would prove to be one of the most significant acts of biblical preservation in history. Deep in the highlands of Ethiopia, monks have been copying and protecting these sacred texts for over 16 centuries. Among these preserved books are the complete Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, additional chapters of Daniel, and expanded versions of familiar texts that contain prophecies so detailed and specific about the final battle between good and evil that early church fathers worried they might cause panic among believers. But here's where things get absolutely mind-blowing. The Ethiopian texts don't just mention Armageddon as a single climactic battle. Instead, they describe it as a complex series of supernatural events that will unfold across multiple dimensions of reality simultaneously. According to these ancient writings, what we call Armageddon is actually the culmination of a cosmic war that has been raging in heavenly realms since before human civilization began. The Book of Enoch, preserved in its entirety only in Ethiopia, provides jaw-dropping details about this final confrontation. It describes how fallen angels will return to Earth in the last days, bringing with them technology and knowledge that will seem like magic to human beings. These beings will present themselves as saviors of humanity, offering solutions to every crisis facing our world. But according to the Ethiopian texts, this apparent salvation is actually the greatest deception in human history. What makes this even more shocking is how these prophecies describe the geographical location of the final battle. While most Christians assume Armageddon refers to the Valley of Megiddo in Israel, the Ethiopian Bible suggests this is only one part of a much larger supernatural battlefield. The texts describe portals opening across the earth, creating multiple points of conflict where the spiritual and physical worlds collide in unprecedented ways. The preserved texts reveal that before the final battle, humanity will witness signs so extraordinary that even the most skeptical will be forced to acknowledge supernatural forces at work. These aren't vague predictions about wars and rumors of wars. The Ethiopian Bible provides specific details about cosmic phenomena, technological developments. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church holds one of Christianity's most ancient and mysterious biblical collections. And what their sacred texts reveal about the final battle of Armageddon will fundamentally challenge everything you think you know about the end times. While most Christians around the world rely on a biblical canon of 66 books, the Ethiopian Bible contains 81 books, including texts that were deliberately excluded from other Christian traditions centuries ago. These additional writings offer a dramatically different perspective on humanity's final confrontation between good and evil, and the revelations contained within them are nothing short of extraordinary. Hidden within these ancient Ethiopian manuscripts are prophecies and visions that paint a far more complex and nuanced picture of Armageddon than what mainstream Christianity typically presents. The Ethiopian scribes, working in isolation high in the mountains of East Africa for over 1,500 years, preserved writings that other Christian communities either lost or intentionally removed from their biblical collections. These texts don't just describe the end times as a simple battle between divine forces and earthly powers, but reveal a multi-layered cosmic conflict involving angelic hierarchies, divine judgment protocols, and human participation in ways that most believers have never encountered. The word Armageddon itself appears in the book of Revelation, referring to the location where the final battle between good and evil will take place. Most biblical scholars agree this refers to Megiddo, an ancient city in what is now Israel that witnessed countless historical battles throughout antiquity. However, the Ethiopian biblical tradition provides additional context and detail about this prophetic event that extends far beyond the brief mentions found in conventional Christian scriptures. Their expanded collection includes books like 1st Enoch, Jubilees, and other apocalyptic literature that offer intricate descriptions of the spiritual warfare that will culminate in this ultimate confrontation. What makes the Ethiopian perspective particularly fascinating is how these additional books interconnect to create a comprehensive narrative about the end times that spans from the very beginning of creation to the final restoration of divine order. The Book of Enoch, which is considered canonical only in Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, provides extensive details about the fallen angels known as the Watchers and how their rebellion set in motion the cosmic conflict that will ultimately be resolved at Armageddon. This text reveals that the final battle isn't just about human salvation or judgment, but represents the complete cleansing of creation from the corruption introduced by these rebellious spiritual beings. According to Ethiopian biblical sources, the preparation for Armageddon began long before human civilization even existed. The texts describe how certain angelic beings violated divine law by descending to earth and corrupting both the natural order and human society through forbidden knowledge and unnatural offspring. This primordial rebellion created a spiritual contamination that has been spreading throughout history, and Armageddon represents the moment when divine justice will finally purge this corruption from existence. The Ethiopian texts suggest that every major conflict in human history has been a reflection of this ongoing spiritual warfare, building toward the climactic confrontation that will end all conflicts forever. One of the most striking aspects of the Ethiopian biblical account is how it describes human agency in the final battle. Rather than portraying humanity as passive recipients of divine judgment or rescue, these texts reveal that righteous humans will actively participate alongside angelic forces in the cosmic cleansing. The Book of Jubilees, another text unique to the Ethiopian canon, describes how the faithful will be granted supernatural abilities and divine protection to assist in the final victory over evil. This participatory element transforms Armageddon from a distant divine event into something that directly involves human choice, preparation, and action. The Ethiopian texts also provide detailed geographical and temporal markers for recognizing the approach of Armageddon that go far beyond the general signs mentioned in conventional biblical prophecy. These writings describe specific astronomical alignments, environmental changes, and social conditions that will precede the final battle. According to these sources, the approach of Armageddon will be marked by unprecedented natural disasters that serve as both divine warnings and preparation for the cosmic cleansing. The texts suggest that these events will force humanity to choose sides clearly, eliminating the spiritual ambiguity that has characterized much of human history. Perhaps most remarkably, the Ethiopian biblical tradition presents Armageddon not as the end of the world, but as the beginning of a completely transformed existence. While many Christian interpretations focus on judgment and destruction, the Ethiopian texts emphasize the restoration and renewal that follows the final battle. These writings describe how the victory at Armageddon will usher in a new era where the barriers between earthly and heavenly existence are removed, allowing for direct communion between humans and divine beings. The physical universe itself will be transformed into something that perfectly reflects divine order and beauty. The Ethiopian texts reveal that the forces gathering for Armageddon include not only the obvious spiritual powers of good and evil, but also intermediate beings whose allegiances will be tested during the final conflict. These writings describe various categories of spiritual entities, each with specific roles in the cosmic drama, creating a much more complex battlefield than typically envisioned. Some angelic beings who remained neutral during the original rebellion will finally be forced to choose sides, while certain human institutions and leaders will serve as vessels for either divine or demonic influence in ways that may not be immediately apparent. Another shocking element in the Ethiopian biblical account is the revelation that preparation for Armageddon requires specific knowledge and practices that have been preserved only within certain religious traditions. These texts suggest that the faithful must undergo spiritual preparation, involving meditation, fasting, and study of hidden wisdom to be effective participants in the final battle. This preparation isn't just about moral purity, but includes developing supernatural discernment and spiritual authority that will be necessary for recognizing and confronting deceptive spiritual forces during the end times. The Ethiopian manuscripts also describe how the aftermath of Armageddon will involve the establishment of a divine government on earth that operates according to completely different principles than any human political system in history. This new order won't simply replace existing institutions, but will transform the very nature of reality itself. The texts suggest that concepts like death, suffering, and spiritual separation from the divine will become obsolete, replaced by direct divine governance that eliminates the root causes of conflict and corruption. What makes these Ethiopian biblical revelations particularly credible is the remarkable consistency they maintain with archaeological discoveries and historical research about ancient Middle Eastern religious traditions. Many of the texts preserved in the Ethiopian canon align closely with fragments discovered in places like Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, suggesting that the Ethiopian Church preserved authentic ancient writings that other Christian communities lost over time. This historical validation lends significant weight to the unique perspectives these texts offer about the end times. The Ethiopian biblical tradition also reveals that the timing of Armageddon is connected to specific spiritual and cosmic cycles that operate independently of human political events or social developments. According to these texts, the final battle will occur when certain prophetic periods reach completion and when the accumulated spiritual corruption in creation reaches a critical threshold that demands divine intervention. This cyclical understanding suggests that Armageddon represents not an arbitrary divine decision, but the natural consequence of spiritual laws operating throughout history. Perhaps most importantly, the Ethiopian biblical account presents Armageddon as the ultimate vindication of divine justice, rather than an expression of divine wrath. These texts emphasize that the final battle represents God's commitment to protecting and restoring creation, rather than destroying it. The destruction that occurs during Armageddon targets only the spiritual corruption that has infected creation, while preserving and transforming everything that reflects divine purpose and beauty. This perspective transforms the traditionally frightening concept of divine judgment into a hopeful promise of cosmic healing and restoration. The Ethiopian manuscripts conclude their account of Armageddon by describing the eternal state that follows the final victory, where the distinction between sacred and secular completely disappears because all existence perfectly reflects divine character. According to these texts, the universe that emerges after Armageddon will be one where spiritual and physical reality are fully integrated, where divine presence is immediately accessible to all creation, and where the potential for corruption and rebellion has been permanently eliminated. This vision represents not the end of human experience, but its ultimate fulfillment in ways that transcend current understanding. These remarkable revelations from the Ethiopian biblical tradition offer a perspective on Armageddon that is simultaneously more complex and more hopeful than conventional interpretations. Rather than focusing primarily on judgment and destruction, these ancient texts present the final battle as the climactic moment in a cosmic restoration project that has been underway since the very beginning of creation. They reveal that Armageddon represents not divine abandonment of the world, but divine commitment to perfecting it. Not the failure of the original creation, but its ultimate vindication and transformation. The implications of these Ethiopian biblical insights extend far beyond academic theological discussion into practical questions about how believers should prepare for and participate in these prophetic events. These texts suggest that understanding the true nature of Armageddon can transform how we view current world events, personal spiritual development, and our role in the ongoing cosmic conflict between good and evil. They offer both warning and encouragement, revealing the serious spiritual realities at stake, while also providing hope for ultimate victory and restoration. For anyone seeking to understand biblical prophecy about the end times, the Ethiopian biblical tradition provides invaluable perspectives that have been preserved nowhere else in Christianity. These ancient manuscripts offer glimpses into the cosmic scope of divine purpose that can deepen faith, clarify spiritual priorities, and provide hope even in the midst of world-changing events. The shocking revelations they contain about Armageddon challenge us to expand our understanding of divine justice, human destiny, and the ultimate meaning of history itself.